Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2% Better Health podcast. I'm your host, Carrie Bennett, and I am so excited to get to talk to Matt Mancz today. I've been following him on Instagram for quite some time. He is the Circadian Man on Instagram, or just Circadian Man. And I absolutely love every topic that he dives into. And so we're going to talk a lot about circadian stuff, solar power, you name it. There's a whole host of fun topics that we get to chat about today. But first, I just want to read Matt's very interesting bio. He's got a great story in terms of how he got into this circadian rhythm aspect. So Matt's a sports performance coach, massage therapist, and health educator. He is currently the lead director of health coaching at O23 Holistic Systems. And I love that name. I wish I had thought of that. O23 makes so much sense. O23 is an online platform that's empowering coaches and leading the fitness industry back to health. Before O23, Matt spent 7 years as a Division I strength and conditioning coach for the Syracuse Orange, as the head strength coach for the men's and women's lacrosse programs, and serving as an assistant on the men's football strength staff. In 2018, Matt stepped out of the college world to enter the private sector and pursue a degree in traditional Chinese medicine and massage therapy, which he completed the spring of this year. So cool. He spends his time training local youth athletes, teaching health principles to fitness and performance coaches, and is currently starting his own massage therapy practice. Bam, that's pretty awesome, Matt. So obviously that's the bio, but like, what was the impetus for kind of going from obviously what I would consider extremely successful being a Division I strength and conditioning coach into this more, I guess, a holistic minded, if you will?
It's funny because I get that question all the time. And at the moment, as I was transitioning, I don't really believe that I even knew why I was stepping out. But the more I really sit and have to, explain it, it starts to make sense in my mind and in my view and landscape of all things that I try to do is to understand really what the human body's capable of and how to optimize that. And that's really what got me into performance and strength and conditioning and studying that and cracking into my way into that profession, weaseling in as an intern, and then ultimately getting higher and higher and up and was able to be there full time and work with a bunch of athletes, hundreds of athletes. And it was, again, fulfilling this desire and this curiosity that I had about, okay, this is, physical performance. This is how we can improve that through training and all of the methodology that goes with that. And then at some point I had this instinctual, innate feeling that, okay, there's a little bit more to this experience. If we can start to peel back the layers and maybe dive into whatever rabbit holes that surround health. And, there's in how we really approach things is performance and physical performance. In some ways, it's a slightly divorced from health and true balance and true harmony. And, I saw that. I really saw there's a gap between, okay, we can, be vigilant and hyper-focused in what we're doing in our body. And that's great. But we're at, the more we zoom in, the more we miss the bigger picture, the more disconnected we can be to even ourselves and ultimately health. So I would see even and started with my own self was, I could train like a wild man and all my, performance indicators would go through the roof, but I still wasn't sleeping properly. I was still, slightly malnourished, and I didn't really feel in balance, in rhythm. I would crank and train. And I would approach my athletes in a at least when I began starting was in the same fashion. It was like, okay, we need to work super hard, and that's all we got to do, and everything will take care of itself. And eventually, you're either if it's mentally, emotionally, or even from a standpoint of a physical injury, you reach an obstacle, a bump in the road, and it's like, okay, do I continue going down this path that I see as the only way, or do I take a step back and I gain a better, landscape, more of a accurate viewpoint of really what we're after. And this was all going through my mind at like, okay, well, I really have a strong passion for physical development and training and being a coach, and I still do. And that's ultimately what started me on this journey. And then I was like, okay, but there's much more to learn that I haven't learned yet. And it even took me, okay, if I'm going to really get into the nuts and bolts of this stuff, I would have to change my situation. I would have to jump out of this a little bit. And, that would allow me to really spur the decision to, okay, I've done everything I can in this regard as a coach and at this level. And I was in a very unique position where I was still young at the time. I was still 29 years old, and I was been doing it since I was 23. So I almost had a decade in there before I was 30. I was like, okay, this did enough for me at the time. I have an option, maybe potentially, to get back in this sometime in the near future. But in this small frame of my life now, I want to explore. And I want to jump out of this, and that really was the impetus to, okay, let's study something that is a little bit more ancient, maybe a little bit more holistically minded, more inclusive of health rather than just performance. It's okay, let's study health. Let's study health. Let's study the body. Let's study body work. Let's study how to seamlessly integrate that into what we would call like a complementary approach. And that was the driving force to jump out of that, study massage therapy full time, and then being in the private sector allowed me to free up some time where I was able to do that.
That's awesome. I absolutely love that. I do feel like in anything, we can get so myopic in just focusing on one aspect. And I think that that's kind of what's broken in terms of our healthcare system. So being able to step back and recognize that and just see the bigger picture, I love it. I think that you're going to have so many tools in your toolbox. I'm sure you already do. It's fabulous.
Thank you.
I was listening to a couple of your shows or podcasts and stuff that you've done. And what I found, what I giggled at was when you stepped into one of your training facilities with blue light blocking glasses on, right?
Yes,
like the main coach was like, what is on your face? What are you doing? So talk to me, like, what do you feel? Obviously that supports circadian rhythm. We know that. But tell me, what role do you feel certain things play in terms of supporting the body? Do you have a hierarchy that you go by, or kind of does it all combine? Go ahead and lay it out there.
Yeah, hierarchy is the proper way to describe it, but the more the visual that I like to imagine as this how this really all interplays is a circle, right? It's the basic like yin and yang. It's this big entirety, a totality of what we are as this never ending globular thing, if you want to look at it like that. But then there's halves, there's a complementary approach, there's a duality, there's an interchange, if you will. And so like a hierarchy, yes, but that is the same myopic way that kind of got us into this mess, right? We see things as like this pyramid where it's like the base and the foundation is what it is, but that's only what it is. And it has to be built upon, and then it gets higher and smaller, and then unified at the top. And I think there's applications for this, this kind of this way of seeing things, but in reality, I really side on more of this again, this more, I guess, ancient perspective where things are more complementary, they're more give and take. It's more balancing. So in relation to how I would approach things, and if I was to hierarchically, I don't know if that's a word, describe what things are most important. Obviously our environment is paramount. I think the way in which we use our environment to even live in, not only train but to exist in, is paramount. And as we're quite divorced from a very natural environment. We're always indoors, we're living indoors, we're around very unnatural light sources, and that's doing things behind the scenes that sometimes we're not aware of that directly influence our health in a detrimental way. So if I'm ever working with somebody, whether if it's a youth athlete, a professional athlete, or even your normal everyday person just wants to get healthy, it's okay, let's look at their environment. And through that environment, I can see, okay, how disconnected are they from what a natural environment should be, or how many instances throughout the day are they plugging themselves into nature? Are they touching the earth? Is their skin exposed to the sunlight? That's what I would say is absolutely paramount. How frequently are they doing this per day? Therefore, then we can start to reorganize their environment that they're in to a closer environment that would replicate nature. And that has dramatic effects on our physiology, our biology, our neurochemistry. Everything starts to kind of take care of itself in a weird way. Like the body has this amazing potential if we can put it back in the environment that is evolved and designed to be in. And, it's really not that complicated. If we can, slowly get back to that, again, the body's processes, they just take care of all these stuff. And the next thing you know, we're less stressed and our digestive system is more regulated. We're sleeping better. We're having less tension in our body because maybe we're more in a parasympathetic default state. We're breathing more naturally. So all these things, again, just start to kind of trickle down towards, what I call as harmony. If you can really put that person existing back in the environment that would be conducive to health.
I love it. I see it too. I think it's a beautiful thing when we start to can reconnect with nature, especially natural light, grounding. Those two things are paramount. What do you think? So I do know that this is a newer concept to some people, and they're going to listen to this and they're going to be like, "You're woo, you're crazy. You're like, where's the science with this? Where's the, And so we don't necessarily need to dive hardcore, but like, what are some tangible things you can tell someone to do today, tomorrow, and then maybe things that they can look for and check in with their bodies?"
That's a perfect question, because I think that is the initial, hesitancy is that it's not as mainstream, or if it worked so well, we would know already. It would be all over the television. It'd be all over the, what's, and there's so much simplicity that can be had in this way, right? And when I really break things down and I try to convey this lifestyle to people, it's twofold. It's a way of seeing first, and it's a way of being second. So this perception of, okay, where are you in relation to health? Are you far removed from that? Okay, well, maybe you're seeing things a little bit clouded, right? And then, well, how are you applying this? Or what is your day-to-day actionable steps that you're taking, and how removed from that from health are you in that regard? So do they need to be shown, may science and testimonials? Yeah, maybe, but maybe if they can just sit and observe what every other single animal does, we are the only animal on planet Earth that has kind of built and influenced our environment. We've changed everything. We've changed everything in regards to how we sleep, how we eat, how we work, and we've almost tried to control everything. And there's many things that this can be beneficial for, but in relation to our health, it sometimes we have to pause before we continue on. And I think we're in this moment, in this current paradigms that we're in, it's time to pause. It's really time to just wait a second. Is this the right way? Is this the most optimal way? Is this going to lead us to, health and really expressing our biology and our physicality into the utmost? So it's a very simple way of teaching. I really just approach this in a way of, okay, let me try to get you to see how I see, and let me get you to try to be how I be, or apply how I apply things. And in that regard, it's like, okay, let's start to really observe what you're doing. Let's take this bird's eye, kind of crow's nest perspective. Start to observe yourself on a day-to-day basis. Start to observe nature on a day-to-day basis. These are very simple things, like you said, like getting outdoors. Every other animal gets outdoors quite frequently throughout their day, throughout their life. And there's many things that are now supported by science that are showing how vital light is into our health and the state of our health. And the same thing with our connection. That's a word that I use all the time, is, we're not lacking energy necessarily, or vitality even. We're lacking a connection to it. It's already there. It's around us at all times. Like every other species has a connected life to that, and we're disconnected. We have indoor living spaces, and we have rubber-soled shoes, and the list goes on. How disconnected we are from this energy potential is, again, leading us to live disconnected lives, physically, biologically, but even emotionally. Like it starts to trickle into, very much everything that we do. So it's just setting that table, right? Can you start to see in this fashion? Can you start to see what this is? And then, okay, let's start to apply. Let's reconnect. Let's put ourselves back into the environment. Let's put ourselves more frequently outdoors if possible, if you can, or these maybe like mini, micro sessions. If it's 5 minutes here, and if it's 10 minutes here, and if it's 15 here, and that is just the frequency of stimulus that your body needs. Like, okay, I am outdoors, I'm receiving the Wi-Fi signal of the sun, and then if you got to go back indoors and finish the rest of your workday, but really starting to carve out instances throughout your day where you can again reconnect, and then live again in more this connected, harmonious way to really reprogram all your mechanisms towards health.
I love it. Absolutely. I think what you said that was very interesting is sometimes it's hard to observe ourselves, but you can really observe animals and you can really observe nature and picture what we've done. I mean, even our pets are unhealthy these days, right? It's like we disconnect our pets from their outside living as well. And so, I mean, if you can't necessarily see the disconnect in your body, sometimes it's like, wait a second, why does my dog need to go to the vet or my cat? Yeah, it applies to that. That might be the canary in the coal mine right there.
Yes.
And so I do feel that 100%, I love what you're talking about, like these little micro breaks that where you go outside and you just reconnect your body with what nature has offered, which is like you said it perfectly. The energy is already there. The earth has electrons, the sun has an electromagnetic field, and all of that is stuff that we can interact with. And I think the hard part is convincing people that these little micro breaks matter. And it's like, but 2 minutes, 5 minutes, you told me 30 seconds. So like, what do you mean 30 seconds is going to do something? So what do you say to people when they're, doubtful in terms of that?
It's very, we have to establish now this language is really what you're trying to really get them to understand. It is what you have now is the ability to speak or listen to an alternative language that your body speaks to you in, right? Or that even nature speaks in its own regard. And if you can start to observe and slowly tune into what your body starts to speak to you, right? If you're outdoors for 2 minutes, like what happens to your shoulders? Do your shoulders start to relax and sink? How does your breath change? I know if I get outdoors and green colors and landscapes and blues and even the sky, as the moment my eyes, gaze on that and it sinks into me, I just feel different. Like, again, I breathe deeper. The amount of tension that my body holds just starts to slowly almost like squeeze out of my body. And I'm entering, my sympathetic tone is kind of dimming down and my parasympathetic tone is starting to come online. And I, have studied this and so it makes sense to me because I am aware and I can feel this, or maybe I'm more fluent in this language, if you will. Sure. And our coaches and our clients who may be somewhat new to this have again, they're in no way are they up to this level, right? But if you can start to almost plant that seed in their mind and say, okay, we're gonna micro dose connections to the outdoors, right? We're gonna slowly trickle this into your lifestyle. Again, even if it's 2 minutes every other hour. But I want you to feel. I really want you to tune into your body. What happens? How do you breathe? Are you all of a sudden, this happens to, I'm not going to point fingers at, my fiance or my mom, but sometimes, what I'll observe is, we're walking around the house and all of a sudden I hear a big sigh, right? And that's that's your body's attempt to enter parasympathetic state by influencing its breath, right? And you can go out, you can observe that in somebody who steps outdoors and they all of a sudden, this big, stressful day or something there, and that's their attempt, right? But that is slightly getting them in a different state. So if your breathing changes just by getting outdoors and influencing your scenery and changing, the amount of colors and the type of colors and the spectrum of colors that are your signals and your eyes receive, like that's the language, that's the words being spoken, that your body's showing you that something's changing here, something has just shifted into a different state. And now it's like, okay, well, whoa, that's it, like a light bulb just went off. And like that's now the visuals and the feelings that we want to start to tune into, and then we can start to see that yes, this is powerful stuff, and even when we microdose it in very small amounts, it can change. And if we really compound that over time, now what we're doing really is grooving a new path to walk. We have now like cleared the shrubbery and in the clouded forest a little bit, and now we have a new way of living, a new way of applying, that through that path on the other side is just optimal health. It's reconnection, it's balance, it's really the purest expression of what our bodies are really designed to be.
Perfect. I love that. And I feel like that's really where a lot of the traditional Chinese medicine comes through in terms of that viewpoint. It's a beautiful thing. It's all connected. Okay, so let's go. I'd like to dive a little bit into solar power, cold exposure, grounding. Like you drive home a lot of these beautiful circadian concepts, or these mitochondrial support, whatever you want to call it. And so talk to me about what the impetus for, maybe stacking a couple of things together and how that might be supportive to someone.
Yeah, solar power is I jumped on that hashtag when I first started getting into this, right? I was, living in this very closed in, boxed in life for almost 15 years, like living in the weight room, training athletes. And it was, again, amazing. But I very rarely would spend a lot of time outdoors. I was not getting as much light as I needed. And so when I really started to take this stuff seriously around 2017, I started listening to Jack Cruz and a bunch of the other OG circadian nights. And it was like, wow, this is something I was missing in my life that I had when I was growing up. I was always outdoors. I was always at the beach. I was always hanging out. And when you feel different, right, in the summer, where you have maybe a little bit more tan skin or something, and you just feel more vibrant, more energetic. And then for me, living in upstate New York with cloud cover and a lot of snow, and the winters were like 8 months long, and the seasonal depression is arguably a real thing or not. But I definitely felt different. And when I moved back closer to my hometown and was able to now have a little bit longer of a summer and spend more time outdoors, my body started to change. I had just more stable is the word energy. It wasn't like ramped up to the moon, but it was this more of this like constant green, if you will. Like the lights were always green. And I really didn't have to drink as much pre-workout or coffee or anything because I was outdoors a lot more. I was connected to the earth. And then I really started introducing cold exposure quite frequently. So the solar power hashtag was like, yeah, we can still be powerful, organisms. We can still be powerful humans, and we can still train and lift weights and increase all our power potential. But we should do so in a solar landscape. We should be doing this outdoors, connected to the real solar power, right? Our mitochondria, the solar panels in us. And, I started to really start to shift a lot of my training out of the weight room and out of the gym, and then just doing a lot more stuff outdoors. And even if it was, less fancy stuff, but more your basic, let's just do body weight calisthenics. Let's just crawl. Let's just lunge. Let's just twist. Let's just run. Let's sprint. And really not even have a need for equipment, but we're outdoors, we're connected. And I'm exposing, all these mitochondrial, again, mini solar panels that are loaded in each of our cells and on our skin back to, what they need as like a nutrient sunlight is. And, that was, again, a dramatic shift in myself and in the state of health that I started to feel. And I'm like, okay, this is something real. Like we're onto something here. This is something that I see now as an absolute necessity in the shift of our profession to reconnect the situations that we're training in back to something outdoors, even if it's a landscape, even if it's more windows, if it's partly indoor and partly outdoor, and allowing this potential, right, for the sun that the sun has to literally charge us up. That is again, it's so vital because we're so disconnected from it. And if you're living indoor, if you're working indoors, for say 7-8 hours a day, and the first thing you do when you go to the gym is to go back indoors, that's a problem, right? And but vice versa, say you work an outdoor job, you're outdoors all day, maybe doing something like that, and then you step into the gym indoors, I would say that's okay.
Sure.
But again, the profession that we are in, or that I was groomed into, needs this, and solar power is an attempt to open people's eyes to the power of the sun, and that it can be done. You can train, and you should train in an environment that allows you to connect to the photon energy of the sun.
Absolutely. I love it. I have myself made a complete shift to outdoor training, and it's huge. And I feel like I have to do less for more gains,
Yes.
and right. And my gains are, I'm not, I was an athlete back in the day, right? I'm not looking for athlete gains, but I just feel like just how my muscles all interact with each other, my posture, my core, all of it just feels like it benefits from that solar power experience. And I do come from an exercise background too, as a personal trainer for years and years. And my brain has always wondered, and I'd love your opinion on this. Exercise, we know, has been studied for so many various reasons. It has so many benefits. I am wondering though, if one of the benefits that's really not looked at is the fact that we generate our own heat. And heat is just another form of light. And it's like, maybe the benefit of exercise that we've been experiencing when we're in a gym is just the generation of light inside of us. And we can actually multiply that by a ton by actually having the natural light shine on us as we're generating our own infrared light.
That's amazing. And I think you're right on the money. And, everything comes down to energy, right? And once you can just start to understand, not even, the crazy complicated concepts, more just basic fundamentals, right? So heat and light and even matter, everything can be boiled down into some semblance of energy. And even when you talk about our muscles that can generate heat, yes, they can also generate a piezoelectric effect, right? And even our skeletal muscle and our bones. Yep. So as you compress and contract, you're generating these little micro pulses of electrical charge. Sure. So yes, exercise, you're stimulating blood flow and you're breaking down muscle tissue and you're rebuilding, you're getting stronger through your nervous system. Yes, but you're also literally generating little pulses of energy as you move. And what that is, that's a very good thing in response to all your cellular capacities. The more energy that you have, the better you're going to feel, right? Healing is Voltage is a book that Dr. Jerry Tennant, it is an absolute necessity for people to understand what health really is like in your body. And the more potential charge that you have through voltage, the more potential that your cells have, and that's health, right? If you got enough gas in the tank, you can drive pretty far, right? And that's what voltage is. And so heat and movement, yes, and the piezoelectric effect of movement in general and exercise, all these factors are again necessary expressions of energy in our body, which we all need.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. We got to, if we can shift the paradigm to us being a bunch of chemicals that are interacting, to the paradigm that we're just a bunch of electricity and energy and light, right? And they're all synonymous in my opinion. And if we can start to say, okay, instead of worrying about the nutrients from food that I'm giving myself, they're important, right? But let me focus instead on the light that I'm feeding myself, the electricity that I'm producing. I mean, I think we have to elevate that up let's not make a hierarchy, but we do have to elevate it up though. And yeah, exactly. That's where that comes into play.
Yeah. And it's all right. Exactly. I would absolutely agree with you. And it's foundational in relation to our environment, right? So we are, light is a nutrient. Now that is the shift, right? If we're talking about light is an absolute necessity. We are in some form expressing light in ourselves, and we also need a connection to it from an external source, and the sun is obviously that. And so again, if something is so easily pinpointed as something we can start to address today, now, tomorrow, for the future in all professions, is let's reconnect to an environment that allows more light in our life, that allows more nutrient delivered into us.
Perfect. So then let's talk to me about how cold stacks onto that, the cold exposure.
Yeah, cold. It's it's funny because in the winter, I'm in the sauna almost daily.
Yep.
And then in the summer, I'm in the ice bath almost daily. And it's again, we've been talking about like this duality and this relationship, right? I think, temperature has an influence on this as well. So, the ability that we have to stay outdoors, in the winter is important, but you would need a polarity, right? It's very uncomfortable if you don't have that extreme heat that can continue allow you to continue to be outdoors in the winter. And the same thing goes in the summer. So now is a phenomenal time for me because the much more sunlight in New York here where I am, and I'm outdoors again quite frequently, but I'm also submerging into quite cold water frequently. And what that is for us, you can start to understand water as structured, and you've shared awesome stuff about this, is what influences our the structure of our water. Well, light does, obviously, but also temperature does. And this is something that Victor Schauberger has kind of left breadcrumbs for us to follow, is that what cold temperatures around 40 degrees, I believe it's like 39 point something, it increases the water density, so it's literally changing what water is,
Sure.
the shape of it, and even its potential. And as water becomes more dense, its ability to absorb light increases, right? So again, I'm outdoors much more frequently in this time of the year, but I'm also increasing the density of the water in me by getting in the cold. And then when I jump out of the cold and I'm in the sun, it's like I just opened up like a doorway into more solar power, if you will. Like I just have, it's a very interesting, say, feeling that's going on in my skin. I almost feel like a current, if you will, moving through me, and its ability to just like warm me up. It's a very cool feeling. And I know like something's happening here from a chemical standpoint, from a biological standpoint, that is because the exchange of cold temperature and then photon energy of the sun. Beautiful. And it's energetically, right, improving me, yes, but it's also, when you talk about cold exposure, it's a great test to show somebody, well, how well can you control your breath in extremely stressful situations. So this is also getting to like some psychological stuff as well. It's like, okay, well, how do you breathe? Like the cold will expose that, right? It'll show you if you're a mouth breather, yes, exactly. If you don't really handle stress well, it's going to immediately show that to somebody and who does this type of work. So when I introduce cold for myself and for people that are interested, it is an energetic surplus through this type of experimentation and modality. Yes, it's going to influence your energy capacity, but it's a doorway into deeper layers of psychological processes, and also how we approach stress and even our breath.
Perfect. Yeah. I love a post that you did recently, which was like going into the cold water. It was like cold water shouldn't necessarily feel amazing at first, right? There's a natural reaction that we have when it's a 40-degree tub with lots of ice in it. That's natural. But what I loved is you showed kind of like the initial fight or flight reaction, and then how quickly you were able to calm into a parasympathetic state. You said it was like 8 breaths or something.
It was amazing because I didn't even count that. I hit record on the phone. I jumped in, and I don't, that's an absolute real reaction. It is uncommon, like, oof, this is tough. And the first thing that comes online is like your body. It's like your body's telling you, this is really like painful. You should probably get out. And it's like, okay. And then you breathe, right? You deep inhale through the nose, like I'm talking deep, and then very long extended exhale. That's, one cycle. And then after like 2 of those, 3 of those, you're at least, that initial like, get out. Okay, it's muted a little bit. But then the mind will come online. It's like, okay, dude, 30 seconds in, that's enough. Get out. Like, okay, we've had enough. And then it's like at 50 a minute, it's like, okay, we've had enough. Let's go. Let's get up. And you just continue at all these like voices in your head and this whole interplay going on. You're continuing to deep inhale and long extended exhale. And it only took, I didn't even realize until I counted in the video, that 8 exhales, I went from like absolute sheer pain to, throwing the peace sign up because I was completely hanging out in a very chilled out state.
I love that real time reaction to it. I do think that it's a misnomer. People don't like to be uncomfortable, right? We, like you said, we've constructed an artificial environment where we never have to feel discomfort. And I do believe, though, that is maybe not making us as resilient these days, right? So there is something to be said about needing to say that discomfort is where you start to build resilience, from the mental resilience all the way to the cellular level. Like, our mitochondria need to be resilient. And so voila, right there. Love it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And resiliency is like, that's the perfect word, because it's in a way, right? All cells are communicating with a language. And if every cell speaks the resiliency language, you have a very interconnected being. You have a very coherent, resilient totality, right? And whatever, if any type of uncomfortableness enters your life, you're operating on the same code, right? It's like, okay, this is stress. I have resiliency. I can deal with this. Something else is going to manifest in your life, because it always does. You're operating on the same code. And we're so uncomfortable with uncomfortableness, right? We don't have it. It's not a like consistent trickle in our life, and it's an absolute necessity to have this, because it keeps us adaptable, it keeps us adapting, and it keeps us resiliency to build that.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So I think for people who might be a little bit hesitant to cold exposure, I can't emphasize enough that it's okay to feel uncomfortable. You know, it's okay not to necessarily look forward to jumping right into that 40-degree.
Right before I open the chest, and I'm like, every single time I look at it, I'm like, I really don't want to do this. and I do it almost every day. And I still, every single day, I look at it, I'm like, this is going to be very hard. It's going to be it's a process, right? It's like, I know it's going to happen, and I breathe and I do it anyway. On the other side, it's magical.
100%. I love that. Okay. So cold, sunlight, grounding, you know, what recommendations with that? Do you have any specific things you like to do? I know the grounding after the cold is a wonderful thing. Anything that you can, this also actually is where, with grounding, I think about traditional Chinese medicine too, with, you know, the flow of the electrons. That's kind of like chi, you know, taking energy. So talk to me about your experience in terms of grounding, and anything that you think we should know about that.
Yeah, grounding is huge. Again, I see it as a necessity. It's a nutrient, right? So, you know, we have energy as this nutrient that we can get in multiple different ways, but it's not complicated. We can either touch the earth, which we should do. We can expose our cells and our mitochondria to photon energy, which we should do. And then we can also construct some environment that has, you know, negative ions in the air and in the water, right? So the more that you are just connecting yourself to electrons, photons, and ions, the more chi, if you will, the more flow is happening in your body, right? You're accumulating energy, you're putting it to use, and then you're accumulating more in all these three different ways, and then you're putting it to use. And if you have this dynamic equilibrium of acquisition of energy potential and then utilization of energy for all your cellular reactions, you have a very dynamic life experience, a very alived feeling. You feel vibrant, you feel electrical, you feel charged, you feel full. And, you know, so, right. So grounding is that, and things like when we start to use words like charge, but even I use the word all the time. It's like excited. Sometimes I get very excited. Well, what that is, what is that? That's your electrons, right? Your being excitation, right? Your electrical potential just changed. Well, why did that happen? Well, you can, you know, say that you are excited about something, but also you have that in a reserve, that now it's like, boom, you know, you just like have some dry wood and you lit the match and you drop the wood and boom, something happened, right? So the more that we have, again, of these reserves, right? And the more connections that we can start to make in our life throughout the day and more frequently throughout the week, the more connections we make, the more connection we have to the photon energy, the more connection we have to the earth through the electrons, the more connection we have to some negative ions, the more this dynamic flow starts to happen. And then if you attribute that to chi, right? Chi is air in Chinese medicine, it's air. So again, air is life force, right? Chi and mana. We're breathing this life force potential into our body. It's circulating all through our meridians in our body. and we exhale that back out. And at every moment of every day, we breathe, or every other couple moments, right? So it's this it's like this wave. I spend a lot of time at the ocean, and I just watch and observe what waves do, and they crash onto the coast, and then they get sucked back into the ocean, and this never ever ends. It just is. It's this balancing expression, right, of an inhale and an exhale, and it never ends. And that's really what breathing is for us. So every breath that we can take, we're actually accumulating more potential. We're expressing that potential, and our body is operating behind the scenes in a very similar way. It's acquisition and it's application. It's utilizing and it's expressing, and the energy component is just a small piece of that.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. I absolutely love that. And I think what you highlighted was that all of these modalities are impacting the same system, essentially, right? They're helping us excite. You can call it a lot of things: charge your battery, excite your electrons, get energy flowing, build energy in your body. It's all the same. And I think that's a hard concept for people to understand. It's like, well, I exercise because I want strong muscles. I eat like this because I want to lose weight. I wear, blackout curtains because I want to improve my sleep. It's like, it almost is like everything has to affect like a 1-to-1 ratio. And what you're saying, which I wholeheartedly agree with, is that all of these things affect the same system, the same energy system. And so it's not like okay, I have to ground for 5 minutes, and if I don't get my grounding for 5 minutes, I've ruined something. Maybe you didn't ground, but maybe you've been outside, or maybe you were in the cold, or maybe you've been focusing on your breathing, or surrounding yourself with the negative ions like you're talking about. So it's a really cool thing to think of. All of these things are impacting the same stuff. So we don't have to get so myopic again, or black and white with our, it's all or nothing. It's not. This is all supporting energy.
Yes, it is. It's the whole, right? And the more segmented our vision is, right? We talked about like a way of seeing to begin. We have to see all these different pieces and all these different systems in our body actually as this connected web of interactions that support the singular system that is us. And that is the holistic viewpoint. That's the holistic perspective, when you can start to see things in this manner. And you use the word wholeheartedly, right? It's something that is like wholeheartedly makes sense. And that because it's this internal knowingness that we have already, that everything is connected and everything does matter and everything supports the one singular system that is us. And when we can start to live and see and apply everything in a more holistic manner, we support the one system, we support the one being.
Perfect. I absolutely love it. I would love just to chat with you, because I know you recently got your massage therapy certification. So talk to me about where you feel like that is going to, like, how are you going to add that into your life to not only support yourself, but maybe clients, or where does massage come into play? Because I love it, but just talk to me about that.
Yeah, massage. It was interesting because I originally wanted to get into another trade through physical therapy. And, I've worked with a lot of doctorate of physical therapies, and these guys were extremely knowledgeable. And I was like, okay, that would be a perfect addition to what I have as a strength conditioning professional at the time. And, but me as a very curiously minded person and a little bit more open-minded, I gravitated towards the Eastern philosophies, and, again, predating the scientific method and more ancient and more indigenous and more inclusive of this, again, a different way of seeing, a more holistic approach. And massage therapy supported through traditional Chinese medicine was exactly that. It was these conversations about qi and a holistic approach and the interconnectedness of our body. Like, those are your normal conversations in this regard, which is why I immediately gravitated towards massage therapy. And, for me, we spoke originally about like this duality, right? This kind of yin and yang approach. And, I see it in myself is that growing up as an athlete and always, training and whatnot, it was this very like masculine energy that I was always expressing. And I very rarely had any type of restorative, nourishing yin expression in my life at all. I was usually not resting enough. I wasn't really connected emotionally to what I was putting in my body. And I didn't have, again, this restorative yin. And, massage is like, it's that complementary approach. It's the ultimate polarity of the yang that I have. Is like, massage is a very connected, almost intimate profession where, we are connected for 90 minutes even at a time. And it's this graceful, welcoming in, and this very empathic way of a profession is. And it was something that was so void in every other thing that I've ever done. And it now gives me this ability where I don't have to say coach or train 30 sessions or 40 sessions a week as a trainer, or work, your 60-hour shift as a college strength coach anymore. Because that's your yang, like constant go, 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 go. And even speaking and coaching, right? It's like, it's always like it's expressing, it's out. When I work with a client in massage therapy, I don't have to use any words after the intake. I don't have to really do anything other than just like be very connected and be very still, very dynamic, very graceful. And that's it's the absolute polarity of what I was doing in the past. So it gives me selfishly more balance, more harmony in my profession. But it also gives me this harmonic understanding of really what it takes to be healthy, what it takes to be in harmony, what it takes to be in rhythm, what it takes to be healthy. You need that moments in your life to be very expressive and express your potential and action oriented. But you also need to be very nourishing at times and take care of yourself and to check in and to be empathic even with yourself and other people. And if you can operate in this now, this whole, like this duality and this complementary approach, your objective is to be in the middle of that, kind of be this wave that has this this kind of rhythmic approach, similar to what we observed in the waves on the ocean. It's like, okay, this is yang time, it's time to train maybe, or it's time to coach maybe, and then now this is yin time, this is time to restore, be very nourishing at moments. And when I do my online like coaching, it's me expressing this. It's like, oh, this is what I do now. This is me living in the middle. This is me establishing some a semblance of balance in my profession even. So it's very, very cool.
You're absolutely embodying that balance that you want to see in all of your clients. It's beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful. The cool thing too that I love about massage therapy, and I know you feel this. It's like the fingertips. This is the work from Fritz Albert Popp, right? The fingertips emit biophotons. The fingernails are receivers of electromagnetic fields. I mean, this is not crazy. Like, this is legit. So when you have your hands on someone, talk about what a powerful expression of energy that is, both receiving and emitting. I think it's so powerful.
It's amazing because as I'm, I just got out, school a couple months ago, but, even getting into this, I started learning a ton about light. I learned a ton about energy, for Jarek Pollock's work and all these things. So I'm in class and I what's happening when I put my hands on somebody? Like, I know, but my teachers are not as inviting of this type of stuff, because it is fairly new and it's a little bit on the fringes as well.
Sure.
So like, I understand, okay, when I'm manipulating tissue, I'm circulating blood and lymph and moving, body and passing range of motion. And yes, but I also know on the other side of that, I'm also communicating through photon energy.
Oh, cool.
And I'm also influencing, the structure of their water as well as
absolutely.
through. So it's like, it's mind blowing to know that, okay, and the client doesn't need to know this in any way. If they're interested, it would absolutely blow their mind. And even my professors who taught me for 2 years, if these conversations come up, because it will absolutely radically change the profession again in another way, that this is what is happening at a chemical and biological level underneath the skin with human touch. And we're translating energy potential through light and structuring water in that way. It's absolutely crazy, because at times where, when you're like, when you're doing everything correctly and the person leaves the table and they feel great, like the stiffness is gone out of their shoulder, they're emotionally, uplifted and all these things. And it's a product of all of it. It's all contributing to that outcome. And the water component and the photon component, that is a very strong, powerful effect on what you did just there. So it's absolutely amazing.
So cool. What an awesome combination you have. I'm so excited for you to continue to do that. Hey, I loved this conversation. I'm so grateful for it. And I'd love for people, if they want to know more about all this stuff that you do, how can they get a hold of you, or how can they follow you?
Yeah, you can shoot me a follow on Instagram at circadian_man. It's, these conversations and this type of stuff is welcomed through a lot of my posts and my page. And, I'm pushing this movement of again, solar power, letting our fitness professionals and our coaches to understand how important it is to be outdoors and connected and train outdoors. And ultimately, the bigger mission at large is restore rhythm. This is something that rhythm is at the heart of what I do. Being, again, switching my Instagram handle to Circadian Man a couple of years ago, people didn't even know what it means. Why is Matt like circadian? I don't know what this means. Now it's a little bit more mainstream. People understand, okay, it has something to do with the sun, but it has something to do with rhythm. And we are all operating, through a rhythmic experience. And the more attuned we are, the more harmonious we are with the grander rhythms at play, the more we are operating from a standpoint of balance and harmony and health. And so, restore rhythm through circadian rhythm is like the first thing that we should start to do to live in rhythm. But it also goes way deeper into the rhythm of our breath, the rhythm of our mind, the rhythm of our heart, our heartbeat even. So it's a very multi-leveled mission that I have to reconnect people to these principles and ultimately express their highest health potential.
I love what you're putting out. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Keep it up. I will continue to explore all the stuff that you do because I love it. And I am so grateful for this conversation. So thanks for taking the time, Matt.
Thank you very much. And I support your work as well.
Thank you.